And hello, folks. This is your old pal, Uncle Al. We're going to talk about biohacking. This is part one of biohacking. Biohacking has a long history and it'll be fairly interesting. Okay, we're going to go first with prehistoric. Okay, many legends of prehistoric times. They have legends, and this is prehistory stuff. And then here's my take. There were two advanced alien races on the planet Earth. A lot of people think Uncle Alan's kind of and nuts, but this happened, all right? A lot of people don't understand that the grays, little grays, were alphans. The alphans look just like us, same thing as the norm, just like us. But over a million years of genetic battles between the two, alphans became the little gray men with the weird eyes and stuff and genetic features. And then, the norms became Homo superior. And there's a joke around when you hang around with them. Yeah, what's the bit difference between a Homo sapien and Homo superior? One's a dumbass. Okay? Unfortunately, we're Homo sapiens on this planet. I don't like the joke, but they said, oh, you're not human, Uncle Al, and I don't like that joke either. So let me get my lab coat all straightened up, because it's going to take time and explanation. Okay, the alpha's been messing around with our genetic code since the monkey days. Okay, the norms later on landed and said a colony here was going to make another norm planet out of it. But unfortunately, they had a war between the Alphans and the Norms. It was the first atomic war over there. And spaceships, space torpedoes, like a bad space opera like Star Wars. And they forgot about Earth. Gotta have my afternoon tea. Okay? So that's prehistory. That's about a million-year battle, and people forgot. It's not that important until we get on to later things. Okay, let me switch glasses. Oh, God, that hurts. Okay, then we go into our section of history. We have myths and legends of the past. The Egyptians, the Chinese, you name it. Every long living culture has beings with different skin colors, animalistic characteristic. A lot of them were telling about deities and stuff, partially right. Others were, if you knew sciences left over by the Alphans and the Norms, you could genetically manipulate what kind of DNA you could have. It could be a wolf. It could change your skin color. There would be blue people, red people, green people by certain genetic altering compounds. Okay, I keep telling people you have to study the myths and find out if there's any validity to it. And our science is getting closer every day. Okay? Now, as we go on throughout the centuries, we start messing around with genes. Okay? Basically, the simple one is breeding. Okay? Or cross-pollination. To get this, I have to mess around with 6 different types of pollen and a few additives, and I get standard kumquat into unusual kumquat. Still the same tree, both produced from the same tree, except I messed with the flower. Produces fruit, different fruit. Okay, simple. And that's biohacking. Okay, when you change something. Where's my notes? First stage of modification on another living being. That's biohacking. That's number one. Modifying another living being. Could be sheep, could be dog, wolf into dog, coyote into dog, cat, feral cat or wild cat into civilized cat that pooed in your backyard or pooed on your couch. Okay, that's selective breeding. That's a form of biohacking. Keeping it simple, folks, so you don't get confused. All right, we've been doing this for thousands of years. When we cook, we found out if we take a certain group of yeast and we can make another strain of yeast that we can use them for cooking. So biohacking's been in our culture for a long time. We haven't gotten to the weird stages yet. Okay? Biohacking coming up. They wrote stories like Frankenstein monster or modern Prehenius in 1818 by Mary Shelley, who was 18 years old. And you got to understand that the new science at that time was electricity. And if you zap something dead, it reacted, and it freaked a lot of people out. And a lot of people, well, can't you vivisect a dead body, parts of dead bodies, and zap it with electricity? That was their first attempt at biohacking. It made a great story, and everybody forget the monster wasn't named Frankenstein, was named Adam or Eve. Okay, but everybody confused the scientist, Dr. Frankenstein, and his creation, Abe the monster. All right, because I'm going slow because a lot of you still don't understand what's biohacking. So we're going to go through historical basis, and then we're going into the real stuff. Down below, you will see a link that explains the more modern aspects of this. But right now, we're going to historical. Next one is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's another form of biohacking where you take certain drugs and chemicals or enzymes to change yourself. Dr. Jekyll, a nice, mild-mannered, kind of weak person, all of a sudden turns to a brute Mr. Hyde. Gotta check my notes. That was augmented by chemicals and certain enzymes. Okay? And that was written by the same author of Robert Louis Stevenson. He was an inventor and also he was a writer. And he also wrote Treasure Island, Kidnap, and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Okay, and that was in 1886. Now, the first real, okay, dabble into biohacks was H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man, 1897. Okay, now you gotta remember, H.G. Wells became a scientist and a science teacher and taught, and he was dabbling in all sorts of stuff. Okay, both these three stories, a lot of them were outside the normal scientific fields. They did it at home in a basement, a foundation for the mad scientist. Frankenstein was a medical researcher at the university, I forget which German university, medical university, I think it was Munich, and he got expelled and started doing his own experiments in his castle. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll was a regular doctor, but he had also after hours experimenting with new chemicals and enzymes. And you know what happened to Dr. Jekyll? Like steroids, yeah. All right. And then we come to, that was The Invisible Man. That was chemical injections and stuff like that so he could turn invisible. Okay. That's H.G. Wells. We jumped from Robert Louis Stevenson to The Invisible Man. He was trying to become invisible or camouflage himself. So he used a lot of things. Read the book. It's a very good book. I always tell it. But The Invisible Man, it's a book written 1897 by H.G. Wells. And mostly it's chemicals again and enzymes. Earlier, he written another noveletta, The Island of Dr. Moreau, in 1896. This was before. This was more like a shipwreck story that involved a scientist, Dr. Moreau, and his assistant. and their workers on an island to change animals into people by vivisection. That's early grafting of parts and things and make your own people. Okay, read the story. It's more of a society structure. Okay, and you kind of read the story. You have to understand vivisection was a very popular pastime back in those days. They used to vivisection Eskimos because they thought they were lower life form. And they used to do villages up until 1926 when we got modern. Village of the Japanese, village of the Eskimos, village of the Indians. And they would have it in the zoo, like the Bronx Zoo. They had a famous pygmy tribe in the Bronx Zoo. Read your history, that's true. Okay? And finally, we have the time machine. This is not dealing with time itself or the theories or the stories dealing with time travel. This deals in 1895 of social order, of breeding. Okay? So we have H.G. Wells, again, written this, on how the humans devolved into two different races. One was the worker class that devolved into the Morlocks, and one was the upper class, the Eloi, who had plundered everything, lived a life of wonderment and stuff, while the Morlocks lived down below in darkness. Okay? I keep telling it, we're doing the same thing, the same pattern today in history. Okay, we have the Morlocks, crazed masses being easily manipulated. Okay, and then we have the Eloi, the power elites, who leads a life of luxury and dancing and singing and all that crazy crap. Okay, so please read these books. They'll be listed down below. And then we have the Food of the Gods. It's 3 novels, 3 books about a type of food called boom food, and they have another one in a regular pattern, but it changes when people eat it, when plants eat it, and some spill off and feed to other animals like giant wasps, giant roaches, giant rats, giant chickens, you name it, giant vermin. It separates the classes from normal people and animals to giant people and animals. Okay? And each book, Food of the Gods was the first, an effect on society and affect the local village. Second part was Food and the Village, which was, a person affected by the food of the gods and how it relates to society in that small village. And then finally, the final book, Aftermath. What happens to the world after the food of the god, boom food, spreads throughout the countryside. And we have a race of giants and we have a race of normals. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. And you have to read these books carefully. Okay? And that's our historical component of biohacking from the past. Now, in modern times, biohacking really started its big boom with the medical fields right after World War I. Okay? This was all theory and subjecture. World War I, people were losing limbs, have deformities from battle issues. So plastic surgery was evolved from it. We had certain diets to aid the soldiers to recover. We had certain psychological programming that we could relieve battle fatigue. This was all happening in the 20s. You could read about it. It's all there. And then we finally get into body augmentation. Okay? And also during the 20s and 30s, they developed conditioning, propaganda, persuasion, mind control. Okay? And this is all body hacking. Like when you fast and drink a juice drink. That's a form of body form of body modification or biohacking. Every time you fast or drink a diet drink, or when you exercise, that's another form of biohacking. You're strengthening yourself. It got really weird in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And this was not done at a college or a correct medical facility. A lot of people did it at home, in the backyard, in the garage, whatever. Okay? First ones were simple, making prosthetics. Second one was use of chemicals or body modification. So I have to go because I hear my mom screaming. I'll catch you later, folks. We'll be coming back to this subject. Bye now.